Hello. Welcome to my cake kitchen. I'm Gladys. Yeah. Forgive me for dressing up on camera, but it's okay. You're in my home kitchen with me. Right, here we are. Welcome to my cake kitchen. If you see me for the first time on your feed, I'm Gladys. I love cake, and over here I make simple, informative tutorials to help you navigate baking and decorating easily. Taylor Swift got engaged, and Megan launched a show that we can't even remember what it is about, but we're back to everyday scheduling, and we are making a vanilla sponge cake. There are two cakes actually. There's the vanilla sponge and then a red velvet, both of which I am going to be showing you how to make it. So perhaps the focus of the vanilla cake, a recipe I have tried on here time and again. Okay, if you are new to the channel and you're new to baking, or you are proficient with baking but you have struggles with a vanilla cake recipe and you just want to nail a vanilla cake recipe just right, that it is stackable, it is easy, adaptable, it has all the great markers for great results, and has a delicate crumb but doesn't collapse when you're stacking, and it's great for tiered cake. Stick with me because we are going to get into the subject of a sponge cake, and I'm going to be handing you everything, absolutely everything, including my own tips, how I get the results I do, and what this cake is going to be used for. I'm going to be here on multiple live sessions, so if you miss one, hopefully you will catch us on the next shortly after. I'm going to be diving straight into the ingredients, which are already on my table. And over here I have margarine, which is my regular supermarket margarine. This is you could replace that with Stork, Flora, or any from Lidl or Aldi. It is completely fine. I know there's a lot of talk about margarine or butter or whatever that is. It's neither here nor there. We just want to yield ourselves a great tasting cake that yields a great crumb. So please go ahead, help yourself. But you can swap the margarine with butter. It will enhance flavor for you, but it will also affect texture just slightly, but not in a bad way, okay? Because butter sets at room temperature. So I want you to bear that in mind. I also have buttermilk, which adds a little bit of tang, but also reacts to the rising agent in the self-raising flour to kind of lift the cake and also give you a good rise. I'm using caster sugar here, which is super fine sugar in other places, and caster sugar here should guarantee a very nice uniform particle in the creaming process, which should also aid a very fine, uniform and settled crumb, if you like. There's Cookworks in the chat. Cookworks, it's been a while since we last saw you. Ready to soak in the tips for a sponge. Well, thank you for stopping by, and it's great to have you. Well, I would normally break my eggs here. If you can hear some noise in the background, it's not your fault. The rain is coming down over here. It's raining here in the UK. I'm still in my home kitchen, so from the window you can hear. So I hope that is no interruption to you. But back to the subject of our eggs here. Normally I would break the eggs and tell you what the measurements and everything is, but because we're baking quite a few cakes, I decided to put all the eggs in water here. That's also a good tip for you if you are a baker who struggles to get your eggs at room temperature, because in certain places eggs are supposed to be kept refrigerated. In the UK you can actually leave eggs out, but just to enhance how they whip and emulsify in the batter, you can put them in warm water for about 10 minutes. I dump them in a bit of warm water for the last hour, just so that they can sit on the countertop and they will be ready to use. So just in the chat, Tapita is back. Good morning, Tapita. Kosh A, I remember you. I think last time we were handing you tips on how to get some great results, and I was answering specific questions for you. Did you try them? What were your results? And if you haven't, it's okay. It's just to make a note that we remember you. And because over here we do have some very present faces, even though I can't see you, but our community is very active and we're very present, and we tend to acknowledge and see each other. So Kosh A, Great. I hope you had a great weekend. Yes, I know. Yeah. So it's great. I hope the tips that we gave you has been helpful. It was really nice. I went back and I watched it. I'm like, gosh, you must be pulling your hair going, God, can she just answer my question other than dumping so much information at me? But I hope that was helpful to you in many ways. So we have 425 grams of caster sugar. We have 325 grams of margarine over here. There's 450 grams of self-raising flour. There's 60 mils of buttermilk here. And the egg quantity we need is about 275 grams. That works out, give or take, about 5 large eggs. That's not eggs in the shell, it's eggs broken. We break our eggs and we measure it. So before I start, I am going to preheat the oven at 170 degrees C, which is a convection fan oven here. If you're using a conventional oven, you want to raise it up to 180 degrees C, if that is any helpful. Now, I have told you before, I don't make up anything for the cameras, okay? What you see here is my real life. So my kitchen is a small kitchen, and when I'm not working with the oven, I tell you what, I store my baking trays and stuff all in there, which can be a little bit tricky. But yeah, I've taken all of that out, and we are preheating the oven. It should help set things nicely for when we come to adding the butter in there. So if you're just joining us, we're not just making a vanilla cake, we are also making a red velvet. There are 2 different cakes. These are actually customer cakes, and there's quite a bit of bakes to undertake. So I thought I will bring you along, as well as also handing you tips that will give you great results. So I have 6-inch vanilla cakes to make, and then 5-inch 5-inch red velvet cake to make. The difference though is that I am baking the vanilla cakes as shallow cakes in a deep tin, which matters, and I'm baking the red velvet as deep cakes in 4-inch deep tins. If you're into baking, you will know that baking deep can be a little bit tricky and complex to achieve because of the way heat transfers and sometimes the scaling of recipes. But the recipe I'm using here is super adaptable. It should yield you great results. It transfers back to making cupcakes and different sorts of cakes easily. That works just fine. So I'm going to just measure the eggs here before we start with creaming and doing everything else. But if you're in the chat, I hope you are having a good day. Here's a polite reminder. There's 24 of you in the chat, and I don't know if you're just stopping by or you are going to stick around. I hope you do stick around though, but I hope you're having a good day wherever you are. And if you're having a good day and you've decided to stick around with us, do me a favor, do like the video, okay? Because that is a sure way to inform YouTube of your presence here and of course your experience. And also hand us some feedback, whether you want the lives to be adapted in a certain way and whether you prefer it the way it is, because I come here just for you, okay? Whilst when the cameras are off, I'll still be baking. It's lovely to be able to do this in front of you, but I'm always interested in trying to understand your point of view and how you can get as much value here. So today we are back to doing just the basics of baking, and if you're a beginner, hopefully at the end of this tutorial you are able to get yourself a good recipe, adaptable and dependable, that will yield you great results. Because I'll tell you this for nothing, a cake is not just any cake, and I'm not talking just flour and sugar. Different cakes work for different purposes, and sometimes a recipe is only optimized for a certain particular outcome. For instance, a Victoria sponge that requires the same quantity of ingredients may be great, but if you pay attention to the crumb quality in terms of stackability, after say 3 days you end up with a very dense, stodgy cake. Hopefully customers do not have to wait that long to eat their cake, so it won't matter. But if you're a custom cake maker who makes specific cakes for stacking, and sometimes you have to work from certain number of days from production to table, they can take a few days. So the crumb quality really is important, and so 2 cakes are never the same. You have to understand what goes into the cake. And one good thing, my cakes over here, who has seen me adding sugar syrup? Never. I think I have on occasion, and that is based on preference. But the recipes themselves are optimized to be very moist, and I don't bother with sugar syrup. So that's something you can kind of skip if you care. Tabitha says, Gladys, if you didn't do the lives, I wouldn't enjoy building my skill like I do now. Fantastic, Tabitha. That is very positive. Thank you so very much for sharing that. Okay, here's what I'll add though, Tabitha. Whilst I appreciate you and your help and love and support, I really hope that after the end of the lives, or you also take some time to actually put into practice what we are doing, just so that you can come back, give us some more feedback about the results you are achieving, and then we will know. But I am always like so grateful that you get something out of these lives. So a polite reminder, if you're there, your lives are so worth it. Tabitha, you know what, at this point you have been adopted to come along to the UK, and then we'll be transitioning to Ghana. Okay, just make sure you bring mom along, and make sure the hubby has dinner for an entire lifetime. Okay, because you're not coming back. That's just by the way. Coops Woodwork says, Tabitha said, thank you, people. You are very, very kind. Unfortunately, I'm going to be using a stand mixer over here for convenience, but for the quantity I am making for the cake, you can obviously settle for a hand mixer. It is completely fine, but for convenience, I am going for a stand mixer. And actually, you know, it is about to be a serious bake when I have both bowls of the stand mixer out. Okay, so we are making the vanilla in one bowl, and then instead of stopping to wash up, I'll just swap to the next bowl, and then we'll start making the red velvet. And there you go. So I'm gonna just start by measuring the egg quantity that we need over here first to go ahead. And Tabitha said, yesterday I was looking at the German buttercream and Swiss Milan, and I'm looking at which one to make first. Start with Swiss Milan buttercream. No. Actually, you like the custard and chocolate, isn't it? You do. So perhaps start with the German buttercream. And there's a recipe on here for the German buttercream. Remember, we check on the lights, but otherwise I'll link it to you via email, darling. Okay, so start with the German buttercream because you like custard and chocolate. Remember when you were asking about that kind of the custard and chocolate cake something you were? So start with the thing. If you're doing something new, start with the thing you like. Okay. Right, so we're going for the eggs. This is a large free range egg, and it measures with yolk. I told you it measures about 58 grams. Okay, so we need about 275. It measures about 58 grams, and the yolk alone measures about 19 grams. The rest is just egg whites and water. So 4 eggs, and we have 225 grams already. I need 275 grams, and now I have 282 grams because the quantity of egg is not the same for each egg. So I'm a little bit over, about, let's say, give or take about 7 to 8 grams over. It doesn't make a difference. It will work completely fine. But if you find yourself anywhere between 5 to 10 grams more in liquid, just kind of account for the same quantity in flour. Okay, that's a tip for you. So for instance, if you're looking at a recipe, okay, and it's just 5 to 10 more in liquid, and you don't want to reduce the liquid, because sometimes you're like, if I took 10 grams, the 8 grams of egg, what am I going to do with it? Okay, I mean, if I took it out, I'll be using it for my next cake, which is fine. But in your circumstance at home, if you're baking a cake and then it calls for 270 grams of egg, and yet after breaking the egg, do you just scoop the 10 grams and chuck it? What do you do with it? So the tip here is that for any 5 to 10 grams of liquid. If you get the excess, just account for it by adding the same amount in dry ingredient so that it balances out. 10 grams will not make a huge difference unless you are dealing with specific very tricky recipes. Like for instance, if you were making macarons, which are known to be super precious, then of course stick to the exact processes. But a cake is very forgivable sometimes. So a tip here, it calls for 275 grams of eggs. My egg, for 5 whole eggs, I am measuring 282. So all I'll have to do is just make up for the 7 grams extra by just adding that to the flour so that it balances out. That's all. Okay, a little tip there for you. Flavor O is back. Tabitha said, I'll find it. I think it was the anniversary cake for the hubby, and yes, I never got the chance to make it because I still had 2 bev. Yes, Tabitha, you're right. So you'll find it, and those are the videos that have the thumbnails. And I think it's the buttercream, the German chocolate buttercream with a twist. Essentially, I made that German buttercream as a chocolate buttercream, but you can make it as a plain German buttercream without the chocolate, and it works fine. So follow the recipe. Favor O says, yay, you are baking again. Oh, Favor O, are you excited when I come back to bake? Right, so a little adjustment here for those of you who are just entering the chat. There is 282 grams of eggs instead of the original 275. There is 425 grams of caster sugar. There is 325 grams of margarine over here. There is 450 grams of self-raising flour, but I'm going to raise it to 455 or even 460 just to account for the addition of extra fluid with the eggs. Tabitha, do me a favor and see if you can update that information in the chat. If you can't, that is fine. If you need me to slow down and tell you the ingredients again, I will. But perhaps don't do it now. A polite reminder, if you're just joining us, there is about 25 of us in the chat and there's only 4 likes in there. I can't pretend that that is not important to me. So please do me a favor and just like the video. Also, do yourself a favor, save it if you have learned something from it that you think you're going to need, and also share it with a fellow baker. I mean, we don't gatekeep here, so be kind to share it. Even if you're a baker who enjoys baking and you want to get all these tips and secrets for yourself, pass it on to your fellow baker who might find some use for it. That aside, our ingredients are all sorted. Tip here is to ensure that every time you bake make sure your ingredients are room temperature. It's important. It's not just something to say, okay? It is really important, and I'll tell you why. When your ingredients are of the same temperature at room temperature, which makes them spreadable and easy to mix, deriving a homogeneous batter. That's just a fancy word to say you want your batter to be all happy with the right consistency and it doesn't break, because batter making for a cake is essentially emulsification. Remember, emulsification is the long word where 2 family members or 2 people are supposed to stick together, but they don't. They don't care for each other, and they need a family member who plays the peacemaker to keep them together. So remember that next time I throw out the word emulsification, it is just 2 people who shouldn't be together. For some reason, they have to be together. Look in your own life. Okay, that's it. So emulsification is when the ingredients in their natural forms do not mix. You have oils, and sometimes you have solids, and you have water and different bits. And actually, the process of deriving the batter is a mechanical process that alters the state of some of the ingredients, allowing for them to be able to mix and stay together, which will help you create your batter, thereby transitioning to becoming the cake. And that's the essence. So anytime you think about a cake yielding great results, just think about the times where you have to make a compromise, okay, in your own life. That friend that you're a frenemy to, but you get on with, that co-worker you don't like very much, but you have to go to work and tolerate them. That's essentially flour and sugar and eggs for you. They don't care for each other. I mean, I could make an omelette with this. I could go and use my sugar to make myself a nice cup of tea. I could melt the butter and rub my skin over it. Not that I do that. I'm just joking, okay? And I could make bread with my flour. I mean, I could, but somehow, somewhere, I have to mix all of these things together so I can yield myself a great cake. So you know what? There is a lesson here in cake making that sometimes compromising by changing your mindset, by changing where your point of view is, will probably contribute to yielding peace in our world. And talking about peace, I don't know where Blake and Taylor Swift are. Okay, let's just go make a cake. That's just by the way. There is our friend Cox over there. Our okay. Tabitha say, okay, so Tabitha, you will put the recipe in the chat. So the recipe starts with 325 grams of margarine, 425 grams of caster sugar, 282 grams of eggs, which is large eggs, 460 grams of self-raising flour, and we have 60 mils of buttermilk. And we're talking commercially produced buttermilk. Okay, if this life seems too long-winded for you, don't worry, I have created this recipe in short form. Okay, I said short form, in long form video, which is like edited for you, and I give you the same tips, highlighting the reasons for the ingredients and what you need to do to get best results, so you can check that. Tabitha says slow it down. Okay, you lost me after margarine. Okay, Tabitha, just relax over there. I'll get to you in a minute. I'll come back to it. That said, let's move this out of the way and let's get our stand mixer and get to work. What else am I missing over here? Oh, there is something missing. See? Our flavorful vanilla, okay? Because it ain't a vanilla cake without the vanilla. I mean, what are we doing, okay? Yeah. So, yeah. We're doing a vanilla. We're doing vanilla. Okay, there you go. There you go. All right, let's move this out of the way. And by the way, with all the long-winded talk about having things at room temperature, if you cannot do room temperature because the weather is against you, pop your margarine straight in the microwave oven for maybe 10 to 20 seconds and let it melt to a spreadable consistency. What does spreadable consistency look like? It looks different to everybody, right? But this is what you need. Sometimes I like it a little softer than this, but the trick here, which I have done time and again, is if you can spread the margarine over a slice of bread without breaking the crumb, you have the right consistency. And that's another tip for you to test the consistency. But I like it a little softer than that. So I'm going to pop that in the microwave. Because there's already sugar in there, okay? Because there is sugar in there, I can't have it for longer than I need. Jackie is back. When did I actually say, oh, we haven't heard from Auntie Jackie for about, well, you haven't, I have. But yeah, I did mention, oh, I haven't seen Auntie Jackie here for a few days. I should find her. Great to have you back, Auntie J. How are you? Right, so I have just gone and I've melted this. Now we have a really spreadable consistency over here, okay? That's what you need, because you know what, you want to make sure your batter is not broken. But if it broken, as in, don't let it become a runny sort of oil looking thing, right? But having it a little softer will also aid a nice crumb. That's just by the way. So there you have it. I'm gonna get the oven out. I said oven. What is wrong with me? Let's get that. Right, let's see. There you go. Auntie Jackie says, sis, pray for your auntie. Okay, let's see. Auntie Jackie says so. Oh. Right, I'll get in the chat in a minute because I think it's just about to be fun. Auntie Jackie, have you said a prayer this morning? Oh, why am I so excited? Auntie J. Let's try and not be seeking scandal and sipping tea. Let's just make a cake, okay? Why am I so happy, Auntie J? It's great to have you back, okay? Right, so into the stand mixer. You know how Tabitha and I roll? No matter how much the vanilla costs, we are measuring, okay? We're pouring it with a lot of love. But I went on a tangent about my clumsy self losing this whole bottle and then feeling mad. So I'm going to have to put a complaint in to Costco and tell them to change it back to plastic for my convenience. As if. I mean, if Meghan Markle was able to change a whole advert when she was 11, I don't know why I cannot get them to just change the thing to plastic. Because this just looks like trouble waiting to happen. Can you imagine if it fell off? It's gone. That was a tangent you didn't need, but hey. Now we're going to cream this, and creaming is just a way of incorporating air, changing texture, increasing the volume, and building air pockets, which will trap gases for when the cake goes in the oven. That's essentially what that is. So we're going to be creaming this for 4 to 6 minutes. The weather is on my side, so 6 minutes might just be, but I'm probably going to stop the mixer head at every 3 minutes interval, just so that it will give it a break whilst we observe how this visually transitions from the yellow piece of lump we put in here to a pale looking light colored stuff in there. Okay, so there you go, medium high at 3.5 to 4 for 6 minutes, but we're starting with 3 first. I lost you for a minute because my clumsy self didn't notice what had happened. I lost you for a minute because the camera literally fell off. Did you notice? By the way, I've got you back. It's 3 minutes in. Let's have a look at the consistency here. And whilst we're at it, for those of you who enjoy baking, what are we baking? We're baking a vanilla cake that is stackable, delicate crumb, and yet still stackable. And we're also going to be making a red velvet cake. But then again, 3 minutes into creaming, and this is what we have. Obviously, the mixture has changed drastically. Let's have a look at what it looks like over here, right? I'm going to still go for the next 3 minutes. Now, whilst we're at it, you saw me kind of preheat the oven without having to cheat or Google the information. Why do you think preheating the oven before baking in it matters? If you know, put it in the chat for me. If you don't know, don't cheat. We are here to learn. So one is not better than the other, but it's sometimes good to know why we do certain things. So why is preheating important? Whilst that is happening, I am just going to let the creaming happen whilst you answer the question, and yeah, we'll get back to it. Kosh, do you have a stand mixer yourself? I say kosh, but it could be kosher, as in kosh A, right? Oh, there's still a deferred time, because it almost feels like okay, so the answer, you need heat to help the gases in the cake rise and to bake. Tabitha, if your answer is right, of course, why don't you then heat the oven when the bake goes in? That's a tricky way of looking at it, isn't it? Okay, so we'll let this go for a minute more, and that is it. Right, my people, you make me so proud. I think all the answers are correct, actually. Jackie says, Nicola, I'm starting from the bottom anyway. Nicola says, initial oven spring, even baking from start to finish, which is true. Jackie says, I think it helps create even texture in the bake. True. Tabitha says, you need heat to help the gases in the cake rise and bake. All of that completely true. Thank you for sharing your answers. We have Miss Hunter in the chat. Miss Hunter, hey, great to have you here. Before you ask, we're making a vanilla cake, and we're also testing our knowledge in baking. And at the moment in the chat, we're answering the question to why we preheat our oven. And yes, preheating is important for even baking, because when you preheat the oven, it sets the oven temperature for even baking. But more importantly, it also helps to start the heat that will enable gases to react and cause the bake to rise. So all of your answers there are correct. Now, I know some of you have been baking longer than others. I'm interested in hearing about your baking experiences. So before you started baking, right, what is the something you have found about baking so far that has always been exciting for you? Like something new you found about baking that has now become an exciting thing when you think about it. I'll go first. Before I made cakes, I thought cakes were just the same, okay? To be able to enlist the knowledge of baking and to create different cakes the way I like them for every situation and circumstance is just one of the most exciting things for me when it comes to baking specifically. And of course, my interest in baking has changed over time, from being the baker business owner to actually being a baker educator. And the joy of just being able to learn, research something, put it into practice, and to be able to talk about it is another exciting thing. So let's hear what yours are, right? In the meantime, we have the butter, as in the margarine and sugar, creamed completely. I am just going to be employing a slightly different technique here, which is not new at all, but there is intention behind it. In that, whilst we have 283 grams, most people will go ahead and kind of like add the eggs one at a time. I like to do it slightly differently by adding maybe 2 or 3 yolks from the quantity first. The reason is yolks are an additional fat to the bake, and yolks also contain the emulsifier, which is the peacemaker we call lecithin here. Now, if we were using butter and eggs together, you have 2 peacemakers, because butter contains the protein peacemaker, which is the protein emulsifier called casein, and at the right temperature, casein is activated to help hold the mixture together, right? So with that, you get a nice homogeneous bake. But we don't have butter here. But don't forget that the margarine also contains artificial emulsifiers to ensure that the fat and the liquid elements that forms the set products that we have as a solid fat works. So over here, I'm going to just add 2 egg yolks to set the base of the batter for me, okay? It makes a difference because then it yields a nice crumb for me. I don't know the science behind it. I just know so much that the yolks does help to emulsify the butter and set a nice base for when the other ingredients are added. So I'm going to do that. Don't forget, one thing I didn't say, the self-raising flour contains some sugar. I say sugar, salt, about 5 to 7 grams. Important, because that also enhances the taste of the cake. So 1 egg yolk in there, and 2. Now I'm going to let that cream completely before I whisk the other eggs and add to it. Jackie is answering our question that the exciting thing she finds about baking is trying new recipes and having them come out great each time. Of course, you've seen me be so excited like a baby in the kitchen, because having great results every time never fails. So I can understand. Lollipop. Lollipop, what are you apologizing for? Huh? Lollipop says, I don't know, I always do. Lollipop, you should have the audacity. Why am I even saying? Yeah, you know, sometimes when you have somebody who is just so kind and nice, it is almost so easy to overlook that, because then you get used to it. Okay, so Lollipop, props up to you. But I think you can also move around the world with the audacity of a mediocre man. And just let things slide. No, I'm kidding. Why I said that? But that's just by the way. Right, now we have the egg yolks in there. Look at how creamy our butter looks here. It is so light. I know you can't feel it, but what you're looking for is this pale looking substance. It is so light. It almost feels like whipped cream. When you have whipped cream, that is just about broken. And without the egg yolks, the consistency is a little heavier. But the egg yolk kind of changes it and brings some sort of airy feel to it. There you go. There we are. So now it's time to add our eggs. And We'll add the eggs a little bit at a time. You want to give it time to kind of cream in. Nick and Auntie Jack going, oh, we were just, you know what, you never have to go through withdrawals, okay? We are always here. And if you haven't noticed, I think since last weekend, I have tried to kind of break up the sessions so that we have double the sessions a day. So hopefully we can be able to do that today, because I have quite a lot of bakes to get through. And hopefully the school people are back next week, as in the school people go back to school. So our schedule will be back to regular programming, and I'm kind of looking forward to how settled that will be for us, okay? But yes, I miss our catch-up. But you know what I miss? Right, why am I so excited? You know something that I miss? I miss us just delving back into Bible study late. There's a certain discomfort to it that is like still excited and dealers. But that's just by the way. Let's stick to baking for now. We'll see. Okay, so we are letting this go for another minute and a half. That is all getting mixed in, and now what we are going to do is add our flour. You want to make sure when the flour is being added, your mixer is at the lowest. Over here, I have a folding function here, which is very slow. It's almost like hand mixing the flour in. But if you don't have a fold function at this point, when you're adding the flour, you probably want to do it by hand and then run it on the mixer for up to 40 seconds. You can notice I didn't split the buttermilk. It's just a small quantity. It doesn't need dividing. And then I'm just going to add the rest of the flour here. Now, if you don't have self-raising flour wherever you are, you could work with up to 5 grams of baking powder, if you like, and half the same quantity for, let me actually get this spoons. For my American audience, you will need 5 grams, which is 1 teaspoonful of baking powder, and half a teaspoonful of baking soda. That should help get you the results you need. So we're mixing that all together by hand now. Now we have our batter all done. What you want to do is just get everything mixed together so you don't have any stray flour, so you can get yourself a homogeneous mix. There you go. And I'm making this I'm splitting this up into two 6-inch pans. These are my PME 4-inch deep pans, but I'm splitting this into two so I can derive two separate bakes from that. Normally I would eyeball this. I'm sure some of you would want to know, would you? Let's try. And actually no, I am not going, I'm going to use a cup just to see what it will be like trying to do it equally. Let's try that. I normally eyeball this. It's just this. I think this is the 237 grams, mils if you like. So we have 2 full cups here, 2 full cups there. Just, there's always a chance to learn something new, right? 3. I don't think it's as equal as I would imagine, but at least it's closer to what you would expect, if you like. So we have at least 3 cups each here. I'm just doing it for the purposes of clarity and certainty for you. Normally I would eyeball that. Let's see. Okay, so that's a large tablespoonful here, and what we've got is 1 of this, 2 of this, another 1. So give or take, it's about 3.5 sort of cups each in each pan, give or take. 3.5, 3.25 sort of. So there we have it. Yeah, finally. Now what I'm going to do is stamp this to rid of air pockets. And then I am going to use a spoon to level the top up. And when you're leveling the top, just make sure you can make a hole in the middle, because that will assist an even bake on the top, because your cake bakes outside in. So by creating a hollow surface, you give room for everything to gather and then set, giving you an even bake on the top, which should stop doming. Okay, it's a little trick, but I also think doming is actually inherent with the recipe and also how heat interacts with everything else in the oven. So there you have it. This will go in the oven to bake. What I don't know is whether I should leave it to set for the red velvet to go in a little later, or we should just let this bake whilst the red velvet also goes in. I'm kind of stuck. That will give us, give or take, another 20 minutes for this to set at room temperature. It doesn't ruin anything. In fact, it actually allows everything to kind of gel together. So what do? Start baking. Okay, we will, I will bake. Yeah. So there's 170 degrees C over here. I'm reducing it to 160 so I have a bit of control, and then it goes in here. Right now that our time is exactly 10 to 4. This should take up to about 55 minutes to an hour, within which we'll be able to complete the red velvet. We may not be able to see the red velvet finish baking, but when we're back on the next session, the red velvet would have been ready. So that might just be the way to go, just to kind of save us time and to make sure we are being efficient over here. With that done, let's give it an hour from now and our cake will be fully baked. Next, we're moving on to making our red velvet cake. Now let's wipe this off. And what am I missing in the chat, good people? What happened to Tabitha? Tabitha, did you fall off? Lollipop. Did I miss something? Okay, let's see. Let's go make sure everything is all right here. Is everything all right here? Okay, right. I can see. Tapita is telling us about the long-haired cat. What's happened to the long-haired cat, Tapita? Oh, Caroline. Caroline says, oh my goodness, I missed the beginning, darling. Yes, you've missed the beginning, but you haven't missed much, because yes, you can go back and catch up, but we're starting a whole different bake again. So it's great to have you though. It's great to have you back. So thanks for stopping by. Now we are moving on to making our red velvet cake. Again, I'm going to measure the eggs for the red velvet. So the bowl. Oh, there was quite a bit of the chat that I have missed in there, people. I am so sorry. Oh, Tatiana is back. Honey, great to have you back. How are you today? I suspect with the time, you're probably either getting ready for work or you're headed to the gym or doing something serious. How are you though? There you go. So we are going to get there. You know what? Can I tell you, people? I have fear of missing out when I'm here, right? And the chat is happening. I'm like, what am I missing? I really want to be a part, but I know I can't do both. So look, I'm glad you people are having fun over there. Okay, Tatiana. Right. Tabitha. Okay, you're talking about the cat. Tabitha the cat lady. Tabitha, are you a cat lady? Right, we need another 250 grams of eggs. What something tells me I'm going to exceed it and I'm going to regret it. There's 280. Why? Okay, I'll make up for it in the flour. It's still Tabitha is a cat lad. Tabitha, now I'm worried for you. Because apparently cats don't like being bothered. Why do you have a cat though? My neighbor has a cat and the cat is huge. One of them huge fluffy cat that is just eyes, like a ball and eyes. And because I bake in the night, sometimes I stand here and I see it, and my very African self is very superstitious about cats, okay? When you see a cat with piercing eyes through your window at night, you want to call the blood of Jesus. Okay? But I also imagine they are so cute. Oh God, don't tell my mom that I'm a cat person now. I'm not, okay? I know they can be pets and you can love them, which is fine, but I don't own a pet. I don't have a dog. I don't have a cat. What does that say about me? Lollipop. Did you say goats are worse? Right. You know what? I have thoughts about cats. Okay, cat people, don't come for me. I'm just thinking, right? The fur of a cat is so soft and so woolly, but I'm worried about it getting everywhere. Am I crazy? Am I crazy? That's the only the idea of like picking up a cat is actually nice when they are outside, but yes, they are like their claws, like it's scary. But if I can get past it, it's all right. But just outside, so I can give it back to its owner or send it its way. But a cat in my house, I kind of feel like the fur is going to go into my jollof rice. Not that I'll cook the thing. That's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. I just mean that the fur is just so delicate. It almost feels like it will rub everywhere. Is it me? Okay, so I'm not alone. You are my people. Thank you. Because I know pets are like our kids, and pet owners can really get really precious about their pet. You know what? I know there are some awful human beings out here, okay? There are awful human beings who don't like pets and so will do awful things and say awful things about people and their pets. You know how we roll here. We live and let live, and we make room for everybody's preferences and the nuances in nature and texture in our own experiences and livelihoods, which is fine. The reason why I haven't had a pet for my life, for my entire life, is I haven't felt as though I have the commitment. If I was like lonely in my what do you call it, in my cottage on a hilltop with a countryside view, I might want a dog. Who knows? I don't know. Right now, look, I wake up at 11 o'clock and I have to shoe and get the boy out for activity day, go shopping, come back, make cake. What time have I got to take a dog for a walk though? Okay, so it's just a lifestyle thing, okay, which is fine. But I also find there are things that just a cat fur in my cup of tea, I'm gonna feel a ways about it. Those people who have cats and tigers in their house don't have friends like that. Why do you have a tiger for a pet? Why? And if you have a snake for a pet, you are definitely not my friend. Lollipop, that's you. Well, you becoming lunch for the tiger is a whole different conversation, isn't it, people? Oh, Tapita says, I have a cat that likes to hide behind the toilet and swat you in the back. I'm going to read this comment out loud. I have a cat that likes to hide behind the toilet and swat you in the back whilst you're just minding your business scrolling on your phone. What a way to be awakened. Whew. Lord, please. Oh God, that will literally take the life out of me. Please. No. Better you Tapita than me, because there's about to be there will be some conversations to be had, and only one person will be winning that. No. No, why are you hiding in the toilet? No. No, not when I wake up in the night to pee and a cat. Okay, that's enough for today. Okay, that's no. No. I am having palpitations even thinking about that. No, because look, I am blushing so wild because look, Close your eyes and hear me when I say I cannot watch even like snakes, like anything snake like on telly or on screen. I cannot watch. I just cannot. I'm that no, okay? And my bathroom habits change when I chance on a screen that has like the idea of something kind of like jumping up from my toilet is like, oh, so to have a cat trying to do that to me all the time will just be the cat will be up for adoption real quickish. No. I'm not about to faint over here with my half naked self in the bathroom. No. Where is this guy? I've got to take this suit. Lollipop says, did anyone see that TV show where someone wanted to be eaten by an anaconda? No. Lollipop, you know that show wasn't meant for me. I wasn't the audience, so yes, I didn't see it and I don't know what it is because who is that crazy person? Oh, so Tapeta, the cat doesn't do it, so the cat doesn't like your company. As in, the cat doesn't like your visitors and people who come to your house. That's why it does that. Because can you imagine? Now, Tapeta, I have ideas about coming to Oregon because if your cat did that to me, we will have a fallout, you know. Okay, oh Lord. No, let's put this back. Oh Lord, oh God. How did we end up on these streets of animals and pets? Okay. At least both cat owners and dog owners can. What makes you want to get a cat or a dog? Pet owners, let's talk about it. What makes you want to get a? I mean, you could besides the fact that sometimes you just have a preference of one over the other, which is fine. What makes you get one? What makes you want to get a particular dog? What's the thing that influences your choice and intention about owning a dog? Is it because you love dogs? Is it because there is family history? There's sentiment? What is it? Like, I'm curious. Whilst we're at it, Lollipop can't deal with spiders. Lollipop, I'll know what to do now when you annoy me. I can grab a spider, so I have special powers to grab a spider. So there you go. Right, people, spiders. Now this is my OTT self classing session. I'm kidding, right? You know what, people? Whilst we're having this conversation, I need to make a quick call. It's important, people. Let me just do that. You're in my house. I need to make this important call. Please bear with me. Hey, I missed your call.
I made it here just now. They were just bringing it up to the gate.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Just get a private number, by the way.
All right. No problem. Bye.
All right. See
Lollipop says for company, the reason why you might want a pet. Okay. I'm kind of thinking about what I'm doing, that's all, people. Just ignore me. Right, so again, the usual stuff for a red velvet cake. I have 475 grams of self-raising flour, 55 grams of cocoa powder, 280 grams of eggs here, 250 mils of buttermilk. There's some red food coloring, the genius who decided that we want red for red velvet. Remember, the original red velvet has nothing to do with food coloring. I've said that before over here. And then we have margarine here. We have 325 grams of margarine and 450 grams of sugar. That's exactly the ingredients we need. Tapeta or lollipop, let me catch you up to the original vanilla cake recipe again, so that we can get the details right. So for the vanilla cake recipe, if you can just put it in the chat for me, there's 325 grams of margarine, 425 grams of sugar, 282 grams of eggs, 60 mils of buttermilk, and 460 grams of self-raising flour with a pinch of salt, 2 full tablespoonfuls of vanilla, but of course we did ours with a lot of love. The pinch of salt is between 5 to 7 grams. If you put this the vanilla recipe, so make it clear that the vanilla cake recipe, so that it's clear before you add the details. That said, lollipop, Sana is back in the chat. Hello there, lovely. Lollipop, why do you have a snake for a pet? And Lollipop, I'm not coming to your house. that is one way to keep me at the door and be like, hiya, because Lollipop, you ain't about to have me squealing like a cat in your house, okay? Sana, good evening. Well, is it? Well, it's past 4 p.m. It's early evening here in the UK, isn't it, my people? Anyway, Lollipop, no, you ain't about to have me. Can you see me? I'm not about to be squealing out here like a fan girl who's met her crush. No. Heck no. Jackie and I will be holding each other like, girl. I'm glad this is just full disclosure moment. I'm glad you honestly told us before we found the shock of our lives. That would have been the look. Because that would have been the day. Can you imagine? Well, talk about having pets and when sometimes having a pet can be an inconvenience. When I used to work as a support worker, right? You know, people have their pet for company because then it's really important. But the worst kind of experiences I had with people's pet is that because their owners owned them for a time when they were able to care for the pet by taking them for a walk and all of these things. And now the owner cannot go out a lot, or they have limited mobility, so they are unable to take their pets out, and they can't afford a pet service. And support workers or carers were never paid extra to kind of care for a pet. So you will have a peculiar, not so peculiar circumstance where an owner of a pet has like limited mobility, and this pet, as soon as you get to the door, right, it starts like squealing and jumping, especially sometimes when you have them cute little dogs. And there was one time, why am I sharing this story? There was one time we had this client, and they had this little dog. And the dog, the client was so precious about the dog, but the dog had issues. And on this day, it was my first visit. And the caveat here is that most of the carers didn't like going to this house because of the dog. So I was sent there and I wasn't told there was a dog. So I get there, I try to open the door, clumsily making my way in. And as I open the main door, the dog shoots past me and then off it goes outside. I barely had time to check where the dog went. And just like that, the pet owner's dog is gone. And this is a woman with limited mobility. She can barely get out of bed. Boy, when she went, "Where is my dog?" And I'm like, "The dog is gone." She's like, "Find my dog." It was like a scene out of a movie, like the Wicked Witch and the confused person and the dog that has absconded. And I am running around this little neighborhood chasing a dog that kept running into cars. Oh my God, that was the day. Eventually, I brought the dog back. And I just felt this sense of relief that had anything happened to this dog, oh no, oh no. Look, there is more to the story I can't share because it just paints the client in such a horrid light, and I don't want to do that. But it was such a sight that once I gave the dog back, first of all, the care time was so limited. I spent half the time chasing the dog. Okay? And by the time I finished dispensing care and everything, I just called the company. I'm like, "Please, I don't want to come back to this house. I don't." Because the whole experience with the dog was so jarring because come to think about it, when she was like, "Find my dog, find," and I'm chasing after the dog, and she can barely walk, and she's trying to kind of get to the door. If she'd fallen and something had happened, that would be an issue, right? So in that moment, I kind of understood why, people didn't like going to see that client. But more than anything, it's like the difficulty in owning a pet and when your life circumstances change. And that kind of gave me a very different view of what comes with owning a pet, because when your life changes and yet you own a pet, it's a disservice to the pet, if you like, and sometimes it can be very dangerous, And the other thing, in my entire time as a support worker, the thing I feared the most was being sent to a client's house who had a snake. Because my thing about snake is just not like a fear. Like, I literally will collapse at even the thought of a snake being anywhere near me. So yeah, but I never had that encounter. So yes. Lollipop and your love of snake. Lollipop, that's our company finally falling apart because you have a snake, do you? Anacondas and all of that. Lollipop, I don't know who you are anymore, sis. You are on your own. I am not even coming to the streets. No, because if that damn thing absconds, the town where Lollipop lives is a town I'm not going, because if they made an announcement a pet has absconded, who knows? So Lollipop, you're alone in your town. Goodbye. We'll send you the cake by post. Okay, that's what we're going to do. Let's go make a cake, because this whole thing is giving me palpitations. Whew. Jesus. Lollipop. Tabitha, you have so much faith in me. Watch me leave you all the way behind over there. Saying Gladys, you'll be. I am trusting nobody where a snake is concerned, okay? Because you see, sin entered the world because of that darn animal, okay? Just in case you've forgotten. Our life changed. And now we have to birth babies in such pain because of that darn wiggly thing. I'm messing with nothing like that. Lollipop, you're on your own. Can you see? My whole body language is like, no, not. No. Lollipop, I love you. But I might just leave you and remind you, that wiggly thing made our whole lives hell. Like, who wants to go to work? We could have been living in a whole garden. Eh? Lollipop. And you want to befriend that thing? Lollipop. You know, I don't want to die twice. No. I'ma just make my cake. No. I'm fat and I can't run. That's the reason. Oh Lord. Talk about somebody actually just owning it and being like, you know what? I know my flaws. And I ain't about to risk it for nobody. Lord. My neighbor is back. I had a neighbor that went to Latvia. Who? To Jackie says I'm fat. When I was grandma used to use the garden choppers to pick it up and toss it away. One time she chopped its head off. Ooh! Ooh! You know what? All these snaky talks is kind of making me feel a little bit queasy. Lollipop, what made you like snakes to want to have them as a pet? I'm curious. Because you could have a dog and a cat. Why? Have you got to be that special? Have you got to be that special to want to have a cat? They are cool. Like, nobody walks around thinking, I'm going to seek a snake out. It's cool. What made you think they're cool to want to have them, Lollipop? Because now I'm looking at you like, sis. Yeah, goodbye. Oh, Nicola is making basil lemonade and keeping the phone on speaker. Darling, you go right ahead, okay? Woo! Can you people can you people see I feel hot at the thought of snakes already? People, I am hot. Like, whoo, lollipop, why? My blood pressure has gone up. I can't. Now I feel like I can't even come and have tea in your house. That's one way to keep me out. Oh, snakes, you know what? I mean, I think the snake is still got to be looked after nonetheless. It won't be by me, but I'm glad Lollipop is... Yeah, Lollipop, I know. I've always known you're special. You're not like everybody else, you see. So you had to just have a snake. Right. Now, let's go and cream the red velvet batter. Yep, a seagull visits Lollipop. Lollipop just has special friends. What is that I just poured in, Caroline? That's vanilla. Vanilla extract. Well, the snake will eventually eat the seagull. That is a fight I would just leave Tabitha and Lollipop to mediate. I'm staying out of that one. The snake is in a locked box. Jesus! Lollipop, I low-key actually hoped this wasn't true, that you own the snake. Okay, okay, Lollipop, I'll wait for the picture. You posing with your snake. Can you see I'm scared? Lollipop has a snake. I don't know how I feel about that. I just know I'm scared of snakes, okay? Anybody ever come to your house who fears snakes? A family member or somebody who you know is scared of a snake? Okay. Yeah. Auntie J, yeah, sure, I'll send it to you. Woo. Okay. It's okay. It's only a snake. It won't bite you. Like, I am talking to myself, okay? It's okay. It won't bite you, Glad. You'll be fine. Okay. Whew. Like you have the box on display. Lollipop, you are so special, honey. won't bite you, it will just swallow you up. It's quick. Carolyn, I'll tell you the recipes for the red velvet. Never mind. I will tell you that. Don't worry. I don't know. Did we put the vanilla in the chat, please? Did we? Did we eventually do that? If we didn't, I would just tell Lollipop or Tapeta, and then we can put the recipe in the chat. Whew. I had to take a minute. I think I need a cup of tea, and I need to sit down so I can calm myself down, because I cannot even pretend that I'm not that scared of snakes. I am scared of them stuff, okay? Right, so still creaming the sugar and margarine. We are going to do exactly the same thing we did with the vanilla. We're going to start with 2 egg yolks. Except it's 2.5. One is broken. Jackie, you self-deprecating is the funniest thing I have heard or read today. I am rounder in the middle as they come. Well, I haven't seen anyone square in the middle yet, so I don't know what you're on about. Okay? Yeah, Tatiana is saying, do you think you can bake a bun? Sure, Tatiana, you're welcome. I'll make it. Remember, for your birthday, we still have to make the Harry Potter cake, right? Last time we were here, Tatiana, not forgetting you, people, we and our snakes and our pets and our scary feelings, hear me. Last time we were here, Tatiana had a very serious meeting. Tatiana, how did that meeting go? I'm not sure we've caught up since then. If we have, maybe that has escaped me. But how did it go, by the way, if you don't mind us asking? Remember the meeting that you were nervous about? Oh, you haven't been to... Yeah, I kind of thought so. But I hope either way, it went well nonetheless. And I will make a bunch one of these days. I mean, we're coming up to the fall, so there will be easy recipes for you. So don't worry. Is there a specific bunch you want us to bake And yeah, the clanging and the noise you hear is it's a new bowl, and there is a sort of point in the middle that this keeps scratching over. I don't know why that happens, but I probably have to adjust the mixer head then. There's quite a lot happening in the UK at the minute. I guess Lollipop is probably the best person to kind of tell you all about it, because you know, some of us are immigrants, okay? So this conversation sometimes is above our pay grade because I don't understand it. Tatiana, okay, let's finish doing this and unpack this a little bit. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, yeah, I think the evolving conversation is about the state of the UK at the minute in terms of free speech and everything else in between. It's a sad state of affairs, and sadly it is one of the subjects that personally, especially as an immigrant, I have very strong views about that may just be unpopular, not in the way that you would think, but there are some real visceral experiences of the average immigrant in the UK that will blow your mind. And because this is like I've made an intention to keep this a safe space, it's almost like a conversation that is hard to almost bring without making it heavy, you know, because the state of the UK is just like wild these days, you know. It's not a very happy place at this moment in time. It doesn't feel like it. I mean, Lollipop and the conversation evolving is how the threat of free speech, but for people like me and the rest like us, it is really a sad reality. And there is like some really difficult nuance to it, to the point where the subject of free speech has okay, so there was I'll just say this and I'll move on. There was a very prominent case where this lady made a comment on Twitter, and then she eventually got jailed for it. Now, she is a national and an indigenous, so we're talking a Caucasian white woman. And without getting into the race subject that is completely nuanced and very divisive and sometimes can just like irk people, and we're not listening to it either way. If it was me, that comment and the subsequent sentencing and jail time means that I will be sent away from the UK. And that's a real thing. So the subject of even being open to express a viewpoint or hold strong views against the nation within which I live in and contribute to, I cannot even exercise critical opinions about it without risking my settled status altogether. So this is the part where you're like, you just let things be and be like, it is sad, but here we are. That's all. Now we have eggs that have gone in. And whilst the eggs are mixing, go. Now we have the flour and cocoa powder going in. We are going to alternate this anyway. So there that goes. And then next will be buttermilk. Where is the buttermilk? Okay. I'm actually pouring the entire buttermilk in there. And now the best part is the reds. And then okay. And one last thing. Oh, no, not this one. Yeah, one last thing. We have a teaspoonful of baking soda. And into that, there's a whole tablespoonful of cider vinegar. And that has gone in. Okay, that's all we need. Okay, that's okay. Right now, this is the part where I'm going to wash my hands so I can get all my butter out. Okay, I am not losing any butter over here. Okay, somebody is back from their day club. Somebody is back from their day club. Somebody is back from their day club. It's the little producer. So there you have it. Right, whoever is asking about the Daddy will let you in, baby. Yeah? Daddy's got the key. Daddy's got the key. Daddy's got the key. Are we okay? Daddy?
Yeah, I thought you were streaming.
No, I'm still streaming.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just...
Yeah, we're great.
Okay. We have red velvet. Red velvet. I like it when it looks like this. Ooh. Welcome to my home kitchen. Sir, do you want to come and close the door for me, please?
Oh, yeah, right.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, we're on a live. Okay. Okay. We have the red velvet cake done here. We're going to have to wait. Whew. Let's wipe up. Yep. The little guy, he came to talk and still was discreet enough. He disappeared. He'd be like, can I have the computer? Well, let's go check on our original bake since it's been about an hour. Since it's been baking. Ooh. Always a good bake. Okay, let's get a poke and poke it in the middle. There you go. Okay, it's done. Right, remember when I made the hole in the middle? Did you notice that nearly half an hour in, I opened the oven? So we've got our cake baked. It's done. It's okay. Just that between opening the oven and the middle, there we have it. But it's still a good, fairly good baked cake. This will still stack well. So our vanilla cake is done. Can I have a candy too, please?
Yeah, I'll bring you one of mine. Hang on.
And so there you have it. It's gone in.
So you put your favourite again.
It's an eye.
Yes. Oh, you want the lemon and colour instead? Okay. Alright. You want them now or save for later?
If you want to get me.
No, I don't. Do you want them now or save for later?
Okay, so there is our cake.
For later. Good.
All done. We're going to leave this to set a little bit and then I'll flip it over on a tray and then you can see. And then that will be our vanilla cake done. And what we might do is wait, as in come back on the next one to see when the red velvet, because on the next one we'll still be baking some more red velvet cake, I think, and some more red velvet cake and the vanilla. And then tomorrow we'll be baking lemon drizzle. That is a lot of cake, but yes, that's what a busy week for me looks like. I haven't had a busy week in a long time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Which is amazing. Look, I just need a bit of candy as a sugar boost, because between you guys scaring me about snakes
Oh dear.
and the subject of free speech in the UK and the mess that it has become, I just need something to keep me happy. Okay? Nicola, my aunt is in the UK for 53 years, a retired surgeon. She doesn't feel like it's home anymore. I need tea, don't I? I do. here's my only 2 cents. I think the politicians have succeeded in dividing us, you know, because how we feel individually is valid in our own perspectives. So the intention is never to invalidate how anyone feels. There's room for two things to be true. So you can feel so strongly about your perception of what immigration has done and how it has robbed you as an individual of certain privileges and the inconveniences it costs you. That is true. But you can also equally channel those strong views into questioning your policymakers and holding them accountable for the choices they make on the back end, which has affected some of these occurrences. And ultimately, the unpopular truth is that whilst the experience of immigration can be very difficult for all sides, whether it's the immigrant or the indigents, what is equally true is that the immigrant has always been held as a red herring to distract from the real issues that the politicians are selling us down the river for. I am an immigrant, I know that. And that may be unpopular. And this is where I probably lose you. But for all the things we read in the papers about the immigrants and everything, like Nicola said, her aunt has been here for 53 years and is a retired surgeon. If that woman came and stood here and told you her experiences and what she's contributed to this country and yet to feel like it's not home, you'd be really, it will force you to think twice. Equally, as an immigrant who's lived in the UK for 20 years, I can tell you from my own experience how I have contributed to this country and never ever felt entitled to a penny. And yet at every step of the way, I am treated like second class. And that runs true not just for me, but for people like me and people who are also caught in the crossroads. I'll give you a very raw, visceral experience here, and I'll leave you to think about it. And perhaps that should jog your conscience and make you think about whether your views about immigration are coming from a place of limited knowledge or understanding. Because perhaps you, for however we all feel, and this is not to make you feel any bad about your situation, for however you feel, you may never come close to an immigrant experience because life has probably not allowed you to. And if you have, I'm sure you have kindness and love for them nonetheless, right? But here's what is also true. As much as you may, or each person might say, you know what, we're not talking about the entire immigrant population, we're talking about the illegal one. There's no tag on my forehead to define me as a legal or illegal one. And the policies in the papers are traded as though it's targeting illegal ones. But I tell you from experience, and take it from me, that it doesn't feel that way, and I know it to be true that it is not that way. I'll tell you a very, very real experience, and I'm not exaggerating this. I know people like me who are not nationals, and the difference between a legal resident and a national is the passport, right? So you can be a national of a country where you live, you work, you are legally resident, but you don't have a passport, right? And yet that person, I'll use myself as a close adjacent, but this is not my story, right? So I know somebody like me who has a partner who is a national. So we have a national and a resident. The national has the country's passport. The resident is legal, is short of a passport. the two people have a child who has the country's passport. So essentially, just using, this is not my story, remember that, but this is actually a true story of somebody I know and people I know in my life. So for instance, you hear Little Producer here all the time, right? Little Producer is a British national, like an American national, like a national of a country, which means he holds a British passport. Tell me if you think Little Producer, and I'm saying this is not my story, but this is true. Do you think Little Producer should be treated
Hey, don't call me that.
Okay, but I'm not talking about you, sir. Do you think he should be treated any less a British national because his mother, is legally resident but not a national of the country? Do you think he should be treated any less in light of any life-changing circumstance, like his, touch wood, his dad passing, or something really difficult that will require the support that everybody else in his circumstance should be entitled to? Do you think he should be treated any less? I want to see, like, this is just dialogue, you know. I think I've dialed my tone down because this is a very raw thing in my life, okay? And I kind of feel like the sensitivity we feel about it has stopped us from actually hearing each other and understanding the impact of the conversations. So this is in no way to make you feel bad. This is to kind of strongly inform your viewpoint and to give you something that you may otherwise not know. Seriously. So the only way I'm just a little bit calm in my head is because this draws tears for me, and I don't want to make it a pity party. I just want to have the conversation. So hear my heart when I say I come from a good place, okay? But I want to hear what you think. Okay, so Lollipop says, no way, he shouldn't be treated any less. Tabitha says, okay. Tabitha says, I'm an American and she can't fly out. Okay. Okay. So at least for the fair amount of you who are making contributions, you do not feel that Little Producers should be treated any less. Why is that? Our cake is done though, so I'm going to flake it out. The cake is done. Okay, so Tatiana says, if things are done legally, then everyone should be treated with equality because they worked hard through the proper process. True. I agree. I don't disagree. But the assumption here is that everybody has done everything legally. Okay? And I'm using myself as a close adjacent. It's not my story. I don't want to be disingenuous. It's not my story. But it is people I know who are very close to me. And in this case, everything is legal. Mom is legal. And the only difference is that Mom doesn't have a passport of the nation, but she's legally resident. And Dad is the British national and the child is British. So everybody, Mom works, contributes, pays her tax. Both parents work. And the question is, in light of a life-changing circumstance, for instance, Dad passing away, do you think the child should be treated any less, considering the child holds a British passport? Because never mind what the other parent has. The child holds a British passport. Their other parents, be a dad, held a British passport. Dad passes away. Do you think the child should be treated any less? Okay, so Jackie said because he is a national and born to a resident as well as a national. Okay, but on the principle that the child is a national and holds the passport of his resident nation, or as a national of the country, automatically they should be afforded every right that is due them, correct? If we're looking at it from the principle that if you're born in the country and you have legal status and you hold a passport, like as a citizen of the country, you should be afforded the same right as any other resident, any other citizen, right? So in this case, never mind mom not being a non-national. She is still a legal resident. Dad is a citizen. Child is a citizen. Okay. Tabitha says, I do not agree with people here in America that are here illegal. No. You know what? I think the subject of illegal, we can all agree. I can agree that it's a subject that we can all agree that, yes, if you haven't followed the right processes, then of course there are consequences. I know that, but stick with me on this subject here, because the difference here is that the lack of nuance, and I'm bringing you real life nuance of what this looks like for some of us. So forget about the illegal. Nobody's disagreeing with that. Let's stay with the parameters of what looks legal and what is. And I'm asking the question. Dad is a citizen. Child is a citizen. Mom is a legal resident. Not illegal. She is legally resident. Dad dies. Do you think the child who holds a citizenship and a passport to match should be treated any less in light that their father has died? Jackie says no. Tatiana says correct. Okay, so Tatiana agrees with Jackie. So I am Seasonings, welcome to the chat. Okay, so at least I'd like to think for a fair amount of you in there, the child shouldn't be treated less. Okay, hear me when I say, okay, and this is public record, okay, because I don't edit my shorts. In the UK in 2025, there are children who are treated less than who hold British passports, okay? I'm not making this up. I'm not making this up. If you hold a British passport or you were born to never go through the immigration processes that governs this country, it's a privilege that is probably underrated more than you may realize. And this is not guilt tripping. This is just acknowledging a simple fact. And it's not a color issue. We have people who have been born here and never had to go through the immigration system. And I'm talking the legal parameters. I'm not defending illegal issues. I am not defending anything that falls outside the reins of legal. Okay, so this conversation is definitely within legal parameters and it's very nuanced, and I'm just bringing you one specific nuanced subject that affects me, people like me, people in my own family, and people who are so close and dear to me. And the subject of a father holding a British passport legally and dying, and their child, all three children, one with special needs, holding each child having a British passport because they were born here and because their parent is a British national, they were afforded that nationality on the account of their birth here and because their parent was a national. And then dad dies. Mom is legal. Mom is a resident. Dad dies. And suddenly, for 9 months, these kids cannot be afforded any of the automatic support that goes to any other national in this country, because the applying parent, which is the mother, even though she is legal, she cannot apply for benefits for her children. There is no law that specifically excludes even the resident parent to say, for you, the parent, we can't support you because you are not legally resident, you are not a national, and so you shouldn't be entitled to our funds, right? But considering your child is our person, which is a citizen, there should be probably a law or something that protects the child, even if it's shielding the parent away. In 2025, the laws of the UK are such that if my partner is British and I have a British child and they both hold British passports and I don't have a passport and my partner drops dead, I have to make an application to the Home Office, okay, for my circumstances to be revised. And it is only then that my child will be entitled to any of the automatic benefits that he should naturally be enjoying anyway. And I'm not talking about illegality. I am not talking about anything that falls outside the reins of legal. And if you thought I was making this up, look up the rules of immigration surrounding residents under the 5-10 year route for non-nationals. Okay, I'll leave it as that. You say it's gross behavior. This is just an example, and the difference is that perhaps you and I have built a relationship here where this is deeply, deeply personal and so uncomfortable, but sometimes you have to speak the uncomfortable truth. This is not a subject I would aim to kind of have brought to the public arena, because this is what is true about the immigrant experience. Most of us just take it and take it and take it. The casual conversation about immigrants as sponges has become so normalized. And sometimes the shield to cover people's rather gross mistreatment of immigrants is shrouded in, oh, we're talking about the illegals. Here's the thing. Because I have experienced you, I believe you when you say you're talking about illegals. But a genuine question here, how do you differentiate between the illegal and the legal one? Because clearly there is no sign on our forehead to determine, except what we are seeing in the newspapers and generally what is being reported. I wouldn't insult your intelligence by believing you have no critical thinking skills and therefore can't decipher truth from untruth, okay? But where is the source of information defining who the illegal is? Because I've clearly given you a very clear example of a real experience. And believe you me, I worked a long time in giving care to people in this country. Am I a hero for it? No. It was a means of livelihood. I am proud to have worked in a place where I could give my humanity as service to another and be paid for it. Does that make me a noble person? No. It was a means of livelihood, okay? When I tell you the amount of racism, Here's how racism looks like, in case you don't know. Racism is not steeped in the experience of calling me a black monkey or a black person or this. This is what racism looks like in healthcare, and I will tell you my very raw experience. Knock, knock. Hey, Mrs. A, how are you? Mrs. A doesn't respond to me at all. Mrs. A, my name is Gladys. I am here to support you this morning. She looks me down and up. Where do you come from? Oh, originally from Ghana, but I've lived here. Can you get some English speaking people here? Huh? Like, what? Okay. In that situation, I am the vulnerable one. And yet that person treating me that way is protected legally because they are a protected class of people. They depend on my care. So they weaponize that to treat me less than, okay? And I can't even make a complaint to my superior. You know why? Because my superior's business depends on that client having me. So now I am caught in the crossroads of a business willing to sacrifice me for money and for a client treating me less than because they can. So I distract Mrs. A, I get on with the task, I leave, and believe me, there are rules protecting carer relationships with clients. In that situation, I could do nothing. I cannot be angry at the client. I can't lash out. I can't stand my ground. I have to ignore it, hoping that I can record that as an incident, which guaranteed cannot even be looked at. My employer doesn't even care. It's every Tuesday occurrence. So I attend to Mrs. A, unless Mrs. A eventually says to me, I don't want you to care for me. Okay, then I have to record it backed by an incident report and leave Mrs. A's house. But after Mrs. A has treated me that way and told me she wants an English speaking person, and why can't we go? Why are you even, can you even make porridge? I'm quoting an incident that actually did happen, that a client thought I was so less than I couldn't follow the instruction to make a cup of porridge for them. So I leave, and you know what they do next? They call the office to make a complaint about how the carer didn't come. The electronic sign-in system indicates a carer came. Can you send someone else? Can you tell us why we should send someone else? Because clearly the records indicate the carer came. Can you send someone who speaks English? We sent you one of our most proficiently English speaking people. What do you mean? Between all of us, because the employer, as in the company owner, was a person like me. So the code here is that we understand what the client was saying. But because they didn't specifically say, can you send me a white person? We couldn't hold them accountable for being racist. But here's how the whole thing falls apart. Company owner goes, we don't have anybody at the minute, but we have person A, we have person B, a carer. Do you know where person B comes from? And this is no disregard to any other person of Caucasian nationality. But person B, matter of fact, comes from Moldova. And I'm citing Moldova as a Eastern European country where English is not their first language. And in fact, this named carer doesn't speak English. In fact, they have to shadow me. I have to be the lead carer to communicate, for them to be able to understand simple instructions. But guess what? As soon as company owner goes, I'm sending person B your way, they will be a little delayed. Mrs. A is happy. Make it make sense to me. Mrs. A said she wanted an English speaking person. The carer that has now been nominated to go see Mrs. A doesn't speak English as a first language, can barely string a sentence together, needs a lead carer, me, to lead them. But suddenly, when person B is nominated to go and what? Care for Mrs. A is excited. The difference between person B and me is the color. Except Mrs. A knows she can't touch my color because that will make it obvious. So you see what racism looks like? You said the lady's behavior is disturbing. Look, the privilege is that today I get to do something I love so much, okay, and leave that life behind me. Sadly, that still happens today. It's every Tuesday. If you go on social media, on TikTok, not my favorite place to be, by the way, on this platform, hear from medical professionals, trained black doctors, who have to do it twice as much to get the recognition. And it's an everyday story of how when they are attending to a patient, the patient is like, oh, are you the cleaner? I called for a doctor. The lesson here is that racism doesn't look like you think. That's all. Yeah. It can't always be fun and happy, right? It can't. Some days we delve off to the sad little real world stories, and we learn from each other. But you know what is true? Even as I share this experience, there's no hate in my heart towards any of those experiences I had, you know? It's just a sad truth that when you have TV pundits who are sat on screen trying to almost negate the immigrant experience, making us feel like we should be grateful because an opportunity was given us. You're like, at what point does that opportunity begin to become an imbalanced burden? At what point? Because if you gave us an opportunity by opening your gates, it's not like we were here for handouts. Most immigrant people are just decent people who just want to work. And yet the policies are always against us. The policy keeps moving and turning and changing. The language is getting very wild. But here's a lesson before we all sign off, because I need to go and cry and go have a cup of tea. Honest. Here's the lesson here. Be careful where your humanity is lost in the detail of protecting it by a very protected way. Because you know what? By dehumanizing a person in a very small way of cats, is it death by 1,000 cats? When you lose sight that whether illegal or legal, because we can't tell the difference, we lose sight of humanizing the illegal immigrant. We are giving way for that person to be lost in the detail and conversation. And for that, when a person loses their humanity, what is left? They are open to ridicule. They are open to just the subjective attitude that is just mainly unacceptable, right? To the point where that begins to create a whole crisis for society. And that's the part that the politicians have done well by not letting us see. So much so that when we are having these difficult conversations, the shift is quick. Oh, it's the illegal immigrants. And I keep asking, where is the illegal immigrant? Have we seen one? How do we identify them? And if they are that illegal, how about use the right policies and follow the process to give them the consequence that is deserving of them? Have we seen the processes being fair? Just because somebody stole, does that mean they should be lynched? You know, this is kind of a very difficult subject that solicits strong emotions on the side, and I do well to stay away from it. But for what it is worth, I just want to challenge you to kind of like reframe your point of view, because I'm no special than that illegal person we talk about every day casually. You know, I am no, and if you attempt to kind of distinct me from that conversation, you're doing us a disservice. Because when you put me right, you're not supposed to feel like just because you like me or you have some value from me. Sir?
Yes.
Not you. Are you gonna?
What do you need?
We just need to wait here for a minute. We just need your opinion.
Okay, go
A
on.
little bit, right? Just because I am not supposed to feel happy because you can exclude me from the conversation because you like me.
Yes.
You know, it should be that right is right whether I'm included or I'm not. Do you see what I'm saying? So if you find yourself feeling, oh, I feel sorry because it's Gladys, you probably need to check yourself and reframe your point of view on this conversation. Because if you take me out of the picture, whether you like me or not, are we giving the same grace to everybody else? And I'll put it out here. I'm not even a British national. I'm a resident, you know. So I still fall in the same category of people who are like demonized all day in and day out with policies that are so hostile to our very existence. And all we've ever done is just try to work with decent people. I've lived here in 20 years and I've always worked. I've had a job, worked myself every day. At some point I kept 3 jobs. It doesn't make me a better person. It just makes me a determined person with a good work ethic. And everything I've done, I have almost evolved. I was never a baker, but circumstance happened. If I told you about my life story, which will never be shared on here, right? I have, like, it's just the resilience to succeed at every point with the smallest morsel of crumb of opportunity that is thrown at me, and I've just taken it and I've run with it and I've made the most out of it. But it's so disheartening that we don't share our stories, because I don't want to be your hero. I don't. I just want to be a person who just has to be treated fairly like everybody else. So all I'm asking is, when we are making cakes, or we're talking Bible study, or we're talking immigration, just stop for a minute and know that the people who really suffer from this immigration conversation will never talk, because actually it's not in our nature to want to talk. We just want to just be left over here so that we can just get on with our lives. That's all. Mr. B? Right. Can you do me a favor? Can you pick
Still-
me? Can you
Still on.
get me? Yeah, I know. Can you get me a cling film, please? Are you headed to court?
I can.
Yeah. I want cling film and
I wasn't, but it's not a problem for me to go.
yeah.
And a card.
Yeah, 1 second.
Yeah.
My
I'm
bag
just
is
going to.
my bag is in the cabinet.
You get out. You need to do we.
Okay. I think the silence is important though. The silence is to kind of give room for us to take it all in, and because sometimes the silence, we don't have to kind of fill the space. The discomfort of the silence is also an opportunity to learn. So if I'm kind of like just pottering in the background and not saying anything, it's because this conversation is just heavy and I normally just want to avoid it. But I think I'll be pretentious if I just let everybody just have a say and just that would be so disingenuous. And actually that kind of goes right into even like talking about it now, because the discomfort I feel, you will not understand the discomfort here, right? Because, you know, we all, especially if you have a platform like I do, it beggars on having a relationship with the people, which is generally transactional. They like you because they get value from you and you provide the value, and then the value ends up being monetized in a way that grows a business. Let's not pretend that's the whole essence of YouTube, okay? If you weren't getting anything from me, you would be getting it somewhere, and that's okay. You shouldn't feel bad about that. And I make it my business to find out exactly what is important to you so I can serve you. That's the whole purpose of YouTube. It is an additional blessing to be able to cultivate a seemingly healthy human relationship with you, where we can talk about things and not be so surface level. But to a very good extent, our relationship is very surface level, because clearly you won't be sharing your bedroom secrets and random real life issues with me, and I wouldn't come here and pour like maybe the everyday drama in my life over you. And I think that's kind of important also, because there's a place and time for all of those things. And so I make a conscious effort to make sure that I don't cross the lines or the parameters within which we exist. But there are also times that you have to speak up. And whilst this is really uncomfortable, and I made a point to not center it on my personal experience, because when everything then becomes very personal to each person, where every individual can validate their point of view, then where is the common ground? Which is why the heavier subject of the parent passing away, and that's a real thing that happened in my life around somebody I knew so closely. The parent, the British parent dies. The British child now cannot even be supported by the country within which they are a citizen, because the applying parent, because the child is below age, the child is not going to be able to access the support for themselves. So a parent or an adult has to do it for them. And in 2025, as it stands in the UK, the parent cannot do that, especially if they are not national. So then within a state of 6 to 9 months, this child doesn't get any support, and they literally live in abject poverty, whilst their other counterparts, and I won't categorize it as a white thing, right? Because there are also it's almost like a circumstance that rolls out. But the point is, that child is living in abject poverty with no support, and their father just died, and their mother cannot get them the support, even though this child is a British national. And when I pose the simple question, do you think that is fair to the child, without the nuance and context, you will be inclined to think, oh, maybe the child is illegal. No, I'm telling you, matter of fact, the child is a British national with a red passport. In fact, it's changed to blue. Okay? And that's actually a real thing, right? So I wasn't trying to use my experience, because my experience doesn't matter, and it would be disingenuous to pretend that that was my experience. But that's a real thing, and there are people who have suffered that. So I will be doing myself and a community of people similar to me a disservice if I don't speak up. But when I do, when we get into this uncomfortable territory, two things can happen. You can suddenly get really protective of your bias. And I'm not charging at you, but it's a human instinct to think, the fun is gone, this got too deep, I didn't sign up for this. And that's okay. Because actually, if you only live for me serving your happy moments, and you cannot extend me humanity by sitting in the discomfort that you are faced with, because suddenly you don't see me as the patent view of that person, but suddenly my presence and my voice challenges the bias and difficulty that you are not comfortable with appreciating, then I personally would probably be happy we don't have this relationship. Do you? And that's such a bold thing to have, but I think I would go to bed, I would go to sleep happily with that. I don't mind where you are on the political spectrum. I don't care. This is not even a political subject. This is a human subject. So I was just saying, the same strong feelings we have to sort of almost dehumanize the people we perceive are not abiding to the rules. Here's a challenging question for you. Do you think your politicians are holding on to the same rules that you voted them into power for? Because I can tell you with no shred of doubt that no, they're not. Because I am not really politically invested like that, but there are things I am interested in that informs my point of view about how politics is and the personalities that do politics. And actually, over the weekend, I was listening to a podcast. You might want to go watch it too. It's Heretics. And there was Michael Gove. If you're in the UK, you would know Michael Gove. He was one of the leading figures in the, what do you call it? The Conservative Party, okay? And his wife, now ex-wife, she is a Daily Mail columnist. She's a Daily Mail columnist. She's called Sarah Vine. If you Google Sarah Vine, you will find a lot of articles about Sarah Vine. She's a very, very, very accomplished journalist. These days, the word journalist has been reduced to people just holding a microphone. But let's not forget, journalism is a trained profession. And this woman is a journalist. She speaks, I think, 4 languages. Like, we're talking, especially in Britain, where you have, like, the perceived class system. She sits on the upper echelons. I mean, she was married to Michael Gove, right? So she's written a book. And so she was on a podcast. She was on a podcast, Heretics. And essentially, she's trying to sell the book, but she has to talk about the experience that ends up in the book. And this is what she casually tells us. And I will really entreat you, whether you're into UK politics or not, just go and hear her out. This is the wife of a prominent leading politician in the UK. And she says, they're talking about how politicians sometimes are very robotic and not very responsive to the human experience. For instance, you could ask a politician a simple question like, do you think you've got this right? And then they'll string you along with a bunch of word salad that means nothing, all in trying to deflect from answering your questions directly. And she says, in her experience as the wife of a prominent political figure in the UK, there used to be a time where her husband, now ex-husband Michael Gove, David Cameron, and somebody else, like, go hear it out for yourself. Don't take my word for it. They sit down and literally practice how to respond to media questions. So they sort of set up mock interviews. So these people have what you call press secretaries and private secretaries and what have you. And they have spin doctors and all this bunch of people who are in the back end trying to make them not respond to your real life experience. Let that sink in for a minute. And think the reason why you are not probably getting the answers you may need about how bad the immigration issue really looks like is that the politicians are not committed to solving it in a way that will make for a good outcome for both you and I. And in fact, what they have succeeded in doing is highlighting the obvious part for you to be distracted by, whilst their bank accounts get fat year in, year out, and their children will have the best in society, and you and I will be at each other's throat at the expense of an issue that you and I shouldn't even be that cut out by. Somebody has to be responsible for fixing it. And the real question is, are they fixing it in the way they should? That's all. Watching toddlers argue, I think toddlers do a good job, because at least if the toddlers are getting at each other and you get in there, you're like, what do you want? They will tell you what they want. Whereas the politicians actually weaponize the ability to not tell you what they really, really, really want. Because what they really, really want, if they told you, you might just not vote for them. That's all. I kind of feel like yesterday I was reading about Elijah, right? I don't know how. Now let's get to the comfortable subject of Bible study, and then we'll go away. Yesterday I was reading about Elijah, because if you've read your Bible, you know we don't get a proper introduction to Elijah at all. We just know this person who just showed up and caused chaos. In my mind, he points his hands at Ahab and be like, Ahab, there won't be rain. And Ahab is like, you troubler of Israel, please. Okay? So that in itself is like, Jackie? Yeah. So Elijah comes and just causes all this ruckus and then goes off. And I'm reading the story of Elijah, right? And I'm thinking, what is the lesson here? And I didn't realize the lesson would be real this morning. Because the lesson here is Elijah may just not have been, he may just not have felt the need to, but perhaps because he was commissioned to go speak to Ahab and challenge him on his wrong ways and his idolatry, he did. Eventually we knew Elijah did have like real human experiences, where after his encounter on Mount Carmel, he gets so scared he runs off. He's like, God, kill me, like and you're like, oh, how do you go from serving the Lord over here and doing all these greater exploits and now feeling so scared? And you kind of find out that the human experience is not very linear. Okay, it is very complex. And so I think that the lesson here is my own discomfort here, which is that I can actually avoid this conversation and pretend that this is not happening, and we can make cakes and we can all laugh, and you know, but at least you know that I'm not scared to hold the tension of a difficult conversation. But that is not because I want to make you feel bad. No, there was a point in time where someone on this chat, I hate that I bring it up, but I think from their point of view, they thought I was pandering to white people, and they left their thought actually in an open space. And if you go back and you look at it, I never commented about it because it was such a dumb thing. If you knew me and knew my person and my core, it was like, why would anybody say that? And that was simply because from this person's point of view, I think they perceived as someone like me, they probably didn't understand why I have an audience that is wider than my own people. And I don't fit in that box either way, because I attempt to relate to everybody uniquely because of the way they treat me or the way we are as people. It shouldn't be a color or a race thing. But the subject of race is really very real to me, and I will be very disingenuous if I say that it's any different. The only reason I have just tried not to kind of get into that place is because sometimes there has to be a right and a right time and space for it. And today is the day where it probably just felt right. But hey, we can go back to talking snakes and pets and making cakes. We can always healthily disagree with each other and still have love. That's all. Seasonings, I appreciate you for that. Thank you. Jackie says it's real conversation. It is. It is. It is. I appreciate you guys for holding space to hear me, even if it will take you a minute to kind of understand the core of what we are discussing. I really hope, though, the reason why this difficult conversation is even necessary is also because we have a relationship. If you were just passing people, then maybe I won't find the need to, because you wouldn't know me, you wouldn't know my heart. But we've hung out here a little longer, and for most of you who are engaged in this conversation with me are people I know have been here for me, even if it's over the screen. So for that, I trust that no matter how uncomfortable it feels, you can still hear my heart and see what I'm saying without feeling that I am judging your genuine experiences too, even if it is opposite to mine. I hope you can hear that and understand that. That's all. Yeah. And I love you for it, and I thank you so very much. Okay. In a world where we can hardly hear each other, where we are throwing stones and bricks at each other and we're all like impassioned, I am just grateful that I have you here and you can hear my heart and I can understand your heart and your point of view. And for that, I think we as a community and a village should be proud of, because the internet is not a safe space, you know. Okay, the internet is not safe. So Tatiana says deep conversations are my favorite because they are the ones that matter at the end of the day. Yeah, you know. So the fun thing is that it's not the kind of conversation where you say to the boyfriend, "Oi, you, at 3 o'clock I need to have a chat with you." It's like you just walk in and it's all like, okay, we're here now. I know, sis, why we're here. Can't just live onto the same street. Oh dear God. Well, at least we made a red velvet cake, and we made a vanilla cake that will stack well. The big producer has gone to town for me, okay? And now I need to go and drink tea and cry. Did I ever tell you? Remember, you people are making me take down my promise one at a time. Remember the part where my big old African self came and told you, you will never see me cry on camera. I told you. You people were just about to have me kind of like, oh, okay. But that is okay. If I show up on camera and I'm like, and I'm saying something and I have a tear, I think that's natural. The part that is not natural is the part where you set up the camera and start crying to it. It's like, haven't you got a husband to go and cry to? Whew, people. You know what? We made the red velvet cake. It is still baking. Jackie says, I've had 2 cups of coffee. You know what? I think I need a cup of tea that I will have to sit and have and just cry about my lot. Because some days, like the story I was sharing with you, it is heavy. The story about the father dying, the British parent dying, and then the British child not being able to access support. And this is a special needs child with 2 siblings, and they are all British passport holders, right? And when that happened, I was it's a family member of mine, and I was right in the middle of it when this was developing. And suddenly the world just, I've always, as an immigrant, I've always felt a sense of unfairness, but it has never stopped me from pursuing my life, and it has never limited me from growing as a person. Okay, and I know that's an incredible privilege. Okay, people, let's all be happy about the privilege we have. Okay, because believe me, we all have a certain level of privilege that is not even set in our color. Okay, let's leave that over here a little bit. But we all have a certain level of privilege, and sometimes privilege is not the way we perceive it. Can we all be happy that there's a level of privilege? I'll tell you my privilege, right? My privilege comes from a mother who made something from nothing and empowered me to see beyond the things that limits me. My mom is my absolute, if I had somebody I looked up to in life, it's my mom. She's not a perfect parent. The notion here is not to carry my mom as she is the typical African parent. And if you know African parents, they come with some sort of generational toxic tendencies, okay? But my absolute privilege is having a mom who had a value system to almost make me see above my own limitation. And she didn't do that by affirmation, you know. She didn't wake up and tell me, girl, you have to be positive. No African, my mom is not educated like that. She didn't go to school. She could hardly read a book. So me telling you about my story, right? But you would be hard pressed to find a person who has faced this life like a champ and has raised 5 kids with nothing but the grace of God and a strong belief in faith. That's my mom. And there's 5 of us as siblings, right? And I have only 1 child. And at my age, I look and my brain cannot fathom how my mom raised 5 children. I can't. Like, I take my hats off to her. I can't. Like, no, I just cannot think how she did it. With no consistent source of income, with no nothing, okay? And this woman made sure we were all educated and had something going for us. And that's an absolute privilege, okay? It's a privilege that has kind of seen me through some of the darkest moments in my life. Because every time I'm down on my luck, I have to just close my eyes and think about my mom and how she made it through her life. Right? So some days you wake up and you look at your own privilege and you kind of think, and also without even making it a thing, besides that, like my mom being my guiding thing, the other privilege I feel as an immigrant and as a person I have is the ability to communicate. You do not know what it feels like understanding a language and being able to express it in either vocal or written form. I mean, I'm Ghanaian, and even though in Ghana, English is a formal language, I have friends who have lived in other countries. So, for instance, Germany, Holland, and other countries where they speak that language very well. I have a friend who has lived in Spain for a very long time. But once they emigrated to the UK, they cannot speak English, right? And so the limitation of not being able, like being so proficient in a particular way and not being able to transfer that into another way can be so frustrating. So in an English-speaking country like in the UK, my absolute privilege is being able to communicate in the language of the country and to be able to write it, right? That's an absolute privilege. And for those of you who are native speaking or born here, you may never understand that that alone is a privilege you carry, but it's a blessing in itself, right? So these two things, my mom and the ability to advocate for myself, even when I feel like the odds are against me, kind of makes me appreciate my life in a way. So I say that to say, even though I've always felt unfairly treated, it has never made me a victim of my circumstance. I've never felt like a victim of whatever system. I've almost always tried to see above it. And that, again, is the privilege of mindset, being able to perceive a problem and kind of feel like, how can I get past this problem? Because sometimes due to nature's circumstance, people don't have that. Somebody's inability to see past their own problem. I mean, can we talk about Harry for a minute? The poor guy has all this bottomless pit of money. And he's suffering. Can you see? You know, so that in itself, it can be a privilege. Whatever you have that may seem to work against you, you can kind of turn it around. And the day I was in this environment where 3 children were almost treated less than, where the grieving mother couldn't do anything. She couldn't even have the peace to cry about the loss that she suffered. That day, the world felt so different for me. Caroline says, you've flown me right from Kampala to London in minutes. Oh dear. I hope you're having a great time in the UK. Caroline. You know, so, and by the way, my mom doesn't live in the UK. If you've been here for a long time, you would know. My mom lives in Ghana. I haven't seen her in a long time. So I say that to say, you know, the subject of how different immigrants are treated in the various nuanced ways is a subject that really draws tears for me. But the intention is not to come and guilt trip you with my tears. I can hold it, okay? But it's important that that conversation is also very open and we are all open to each other's experience. That's all. And you know, so yeah, anyway, just to kind of like clarify that part, the children eventually, mom had to wait for 9 months, 6 months, made an application to the Home Office. Eventually they were awarded the support, but there was a time in their lives where for 6 months they couldn't be supported, they couldn't do anything. Mom was running from pillar to post, and that 6-month period could leave a person homeless. And you still cannot get help for it. Okay? So yeah, it's a tough world out here. But I'm glad I can speak to you. At least I can, right? So people, I think let's just call it a day today. Because look, heavy conversations have to sit a little bit. Okay? So let's just say goodbye. It's 10 to 6. I don't know if I'm coming back. I just want to go and drink my tea and mind my own business. And then we'll come back tomorrow and we'll have fun. Okay? I love you for holding space for me. And I hope life keeps treating you well too. Okay? You deserve it. So, bye people. Have a good day. I love you and thank you and happy baking. I'll see you soon.